Hello, people of God. Our Advent journey is nearly complete. We greet the Incarnation by the end of the week as we celebrate Christmas. Let's take a moment to remember where we've been on this journey. We began in isolation, remembering how the people felt when the prophet Isaiah wrote to them. They had been in captivity and were rebuilding their lives, communities, and relationship with God. The people discovered hope, and so did we. We continued our journey and met the people where they were, in distress. It was challenging being in captivity, being away from home, being away from all things normal. The prophet wrote to the people and offered them comfort and peace. The voice called out of the wilderness and reminded the people that in the midst of their distress, God was still doing good things. As we greet peace, we look for the unexpected goodness in all things. Our journey took us to sadness as we heard again about the people trying to rebuild after captivity. The prophet offered words of encouragement, as did the psalmist. Though our sadness may last through the night, joy does come in the morning. As people of God, we have our joy in the Lord, in knowing that we are forgiven. Today is the fourth Sunday of Advent, the Sunday of love. We sing in our worship today that love came down at Christmas. This is true, and we hold to that truth. But today, our journey takes us through fear before we get to that love. 1 John 4:18 tells us, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear." 1 John 4:8 also tells us that God is love. So hold on to those thoughts as we explore fear. How many of us have fears or worries? Sometimes we fret about little things, but when the little things become big things, our worry can move into fear. We fear insecurities that impact our jobs, our homes, our way of living. We fear diseases, illnesses, and time that can sap our health. We fear what this world can do to our loved ones. And sometimes we fear these things. Truly, we must acknowledge when we are afraid. When we admit it, we can get through it, especially with a little help and perspective. People have encountered fear throughout the ages, so we are not alone. In fact, our scripture readings often tell us about fear. What is the first thing the angels say to people? Fear not, or don't be afraid. These words were offered to Gideon. They were offered to shepherds, to Joseph, and to Mary. The psalm tells us to fear not, repeatedly. The Gospels and the epistles record time and again the message to fear not, because God is with us. I was reading this week that there are 365 times that fear not or do not be afraid are listed throughout the scripture. I didn't look it up to see how accurate it is, but it's a comfort to know for every day of the year there may be a verse telling us to not be afraid. So the message is always to fear not, because God is with us. Did you catch that? Fear not, because Emmanuel, God is with us. We don't have to be afraid because of the incarnation, God with us. Jesus was born for us. God's perfect love, made known to us through Jesus Christ, came to be with us. And God's perfect love casts out all fear. This is a beautiful message of love. It's a beautiful message of love for all of us this Advent. Today's passage in Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38, gives us the story of Mary's birth announcement. The archangel Gabriel, the guardian angel of Israel, was given this task. Gabriel is the one who spoke to Daniel about his visions. Gabriel spoke with Zechariah about Elizabeth's pregnancy, with John the Baptist, and Gabriel spoke with Mary Gabriel, the guardian angel of Israel, gave the announcement to Mary. Mary, the favored one, was chosen by God for a very important part of the Christmas story, an important part of the incarnation. This exchange with Gabriel gives us important insight into how God works in the world and in the lives of individuals. Mary's fear was met with reassurance. As Gabriel shared God's plan with Mary, Mary was empowered with a choice. She could have said no. God essentially asks permission. God invited Mary to be a part of the story, and Mary said yes. Fear was her first reaction, probably upon seeing the angel, and I admit I'd be afraid too. But as the message was revealed, Mary had every reason to be afraid. For her, an unwed young woman, to be pregnant was a death sentence. That is fear. Fear was her first reaction. Fear is present throughout the scripture, hidden deep inside of her and maybe playing across her face. But listening to the messenger, listening to God and hearing what God was going to do in the world, hearing that God wanted her to be part of bringing love to earth, Mary set aside her fear and embraced the perfect love of God. She agreed to be the mother of Jesus. Mary said, "Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." Then the angel departed from her. Love asks permission. Friends, as we celebrate the incarnation and recognize that Emmanuel has come to be with us, I invite you to think about what Jesus is inviting us to do, inviting you to do. Each of us is like Mary. We are invited to be vessels that carry Jesus into the world. We are invited to recognize our fears and let God's perfect love, Jesus Christ, cast them out. We're invited to come alongside God in God's mission for the world, just like Mary was invited to come alongside God. We are invited to be disciples of Jesus Christ, transforming the world in his holy name, all through love. Remember the greatest commandment: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And the second, love your neighbor. As we go out into our broken world that has a lot of fear in it, let us be the voice calling out the message of Jesus Christ, the message of love. Let us be like Mary and join with God in sharing the good news that Emmanuel is with us. This is how we leave fear and embrace a journey to love. Thanks be to God.